listening to Resist and Restore, a podcast from the Circle of Hope pastors, where we're extending the table of our dialogue. I'm Jonny Rashid.
I'm Rachel Sensenig.
I'm Julie Hoke.
And I'm Ben White.
I really do think we have a good show today, but I bring some somber energy to it because I'm sad about the state of the world, and we're going to talk about police brutality and systemic racism later on in the show and share some of our heart about that subject. But first, it was just Pentecost this Sunday. Let's talk about the experience of worshiping live, especially during this time and then also during this other time. These compounding crises are changing how we worship together, and I think even making it more meaningful. Wouldn't you say, Ben?
Yeah, totally. I had a really important experience for me during worship this past week. Part of what was pivotal for me was something someone said in the chat. So that's how this is our first opening Talkback section, is that Talkback is built into our live worship experience. We do it on YouTube Live, and you can participate in a live chat on there. I just want to just kind of wrestle with the strangeness of how we're worshiping, because when someone says, as someone is singing, "This is beautiful," they type that, or they even echo the words of a song. Like we were singing this song we wrote, "The Way, Your Way," and then someone wrote "Your Way" on the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a call out in worship. It was like that was their way of like raising their hand, is this chat talkback. And that's so strange, right? But we can lean into it.
Totally.
Yeah, I think that is a unique new avenue of relating to God and each other in worship right now. I kept vibing with my friend Rachel on Sunday, who was writing things in the chat that were like, "This is really comforting. This is a relief. I needed this." Kind of like I'm having an experience with God here, and it almost felt, she's too nice to say this. It almost felt to me like, be quiet, everybody, and have an experience with God. And I loved that, because I think it takes some, not that we need to be quiet, but that we have this opportunity, even online, to get some nourishment for our souls that we really need, especially right now.
Like, I have the live stream paused right now, okay? And I just got you can't see the whole live chat on the replay. You can just see whatever is kind of live at minute 102.50 is what I'm looking at. This is what I can see in the chat. And it's like, "This is great. Indeed. Wow. Crying. Wow. Amazing to hear what it might have sounded like. There is beauty. Amazing." Like, that's a poem right there. That's a worship song right there of just our conversation that's happening live in the moment. Like, I've got chills repeating that, especially the "there is beauty" line.
Yeah.
There is.
Yeah. As someone else was echoing earlier in the meeting, a line from the song that Raissa was singing in Portuguese, and the translation in English was on the screen. And Tracy pointed out, just reverbed that line by saying, "Who understood me without explanation." We were singing to God, and the line was, "The God who understood me without explanation." And right, it's so powerful. And just her calling out that line again really shifted something. People were even responding on the chat about how meaningful that was.
Yes, Julie, that moved me to tears too, because I had just remembered how, when Jesus was washing the disciples' feet, he said, "You don't know what I'm doing. You don't understand what I'm doing now, but you'll understand it later." And I think, I don't know, that's just a common feeling for me, is like, we're not going to be understood by everybody, but God understands us. And Ben, I think that was even connected to your experience with God, a feeling like Jesus understands what I'm going through right now. God sees me. And I think we all need to keep feeling that.
And even if I don't, that was my experience. I don't understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have words for this, but I don't have to have an explanation to be healed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that I can't figure it out that I need to be saved.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened in the presence of God in worship. Like the point of worship is for us to turn our hearts to God. And without expressing our worship and being in the presence of God, we shrink. We shrink into ourselves and our own trying to figure ourselves out. We can't come into our fullness like that. We need to be in the presence of God to be made whole.
Yeah. And our wholeness is a communal project.
Mm-hmm.
And so That's what we're highlighting right now in this Talkback section is that how we even talk to each other in this strange new medium of being together through a screen, which is so alienating, really. Like, so naturally alienating. We're using a medium that just doesn't lend itself to this type of connection, and yet the Holy Spirit can use it.
Mm-hmm.
I experienced that personally. And it wasn't just like what was getting beamed to me as if I was just like watching a streaming service. It wasn't worship Netflix that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
It was the community that happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something unique about what we're trying to do on Sundays at 5:00.
You know, and in some ways it's not surprising because, you know, we've Talkback is a hallmark of Circle of Hope. If you come to a Sunday meeting, you get to talk back to the pastor. So that's definitely there, and it's definitely a homemade communal project. So it's amazing how that's being replicated online. But I also want to say the exclamations during worship aren't something that commonly happen when we meet in person, but they do happen in many other traditions. Like if you went to a Pentecostal style or charismatic church, there would be people declaring things in all sorts of ways. And so maybe whenever it's safe to sing around each other again, which it isn't right now, maybe we'll get some of that vibe right in the meeting. Someone will say, "There is beauty," right in the middle of a song. Wouldn't that be cool? You know,
Yeah,
it's not on their chat where we actually have a cacophony of a dialogue during the meeting.
So the chat, by nature of being chat, like you're essentially the way these, you know, some of the relating that we're doing, it happens simultaneously. Like you're on a Zoom call and people are chatting their agreement or even some like slightly different thoughts while other people are talking. Have you been in a conversation like that?
I send articles.
Yeah, that's like another way of relating. Like we don't usually relate that way when we're in person, and certainly not, at least not in Circle of Hope. At our Sunday meetings, there's some propriety or reservedness that often might rule the room, even if it's not an explicit way of doing things. Because I would love some more shouts, you know? And I often feel like a weirdo when I'm really going for it, but I'm empowered because I'm the pastor. Maybe there's a moment of empowerment here with these kind of parallel conversations that we're getting used to in worship and in our cell meetings and in our other conversations that can eventually spill over into our in-person meetings whenever we're able to have them again.
Yes, yes. So for now, chat is a way to participate in this communal project of worship. Say what you feel, express yourself on there. It's good. It's a way to worship together.
So I hope you can join us at circleofhope.net/online meeting this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. and every Sunday. And even if you can't be there for the live chat, you can watch the live chat on the replay and maybe you can receive more than just what's on the screen.
I'm so glad that you're able to listen to us and connect with us. I love that we're talking and relating. If you want to talk back to us, email resistandrestorepodcast@circleofhope.net. And if you want to support us, one way you can do that is by writing a positive review wherever you listen to this podcast, and also by sharing money with us at circleofhope.net/sharing. Doing one of those things will help more people hear us. I also want to tell you about other ways that you can connect with us. You can join a cell at circleofhope.net/cells. You can see the cell leaders there and connect to one. They're all online video style right now. And then on Sundays at circleofhope.net/online meeting at 5 p.m., we have a live stream worship. It's super engaging and super dynamic and definitely homemade and community grown. So there's room there for you as well. We have 2 upcoming events that I want to highlight on. This Saturday, June 6th, is our comfort retreat, and it's a time for you to be healed and find comfort during this time. It starts at 9 a.m., and you can register at circleofhope.net/shop. It's not just going to be in front of a screen. They're going to lead you to prayer, but then also send you in different parts of your home or your area to be quiet, to reflect, to be on retreat. So it's a kind of a guided meditation that you begin with online, but it moves you elsewhere. Next Tuesday, this is the 9th, I, with my friend Jordan, are going to lead a Getting to Know the Bible session on John and his community. We're going to be talking about the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, John's epistles, and also the book of Revelation. It should be a time to explore the Bible, learn about it, connect with it, but also learn how to apply it as well. It's not an academic Bible analysis, and it's not really a confessional sort of Bible study. It's more of a community-driven way of reading the Bible. We say reading the Bible is a group project, and you can be a part of that too. Thanks for listening. So in this next segment, I want to talk about what's in the air. We've done this a few times, and there's a lot in the air right now. I'm feeling it myself. the reverberation of violence in the land that I think is the result of this state-sanctioned violence, police brutality, racist violence is, I think we're seeing that expressed around us. And that brings me to, I just want to talk about it. So this is totally kind of unscripted here, having an open dialogue. That's why we say we extend the table of dialogue to you, so we want you to talk back as well. But let's get into it, shall we? What's in the air? How you doing?
Well, I think we need to start by saying their names. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. There are many more names to say. We are lamenting the death of their lives at the hands of police, and the police who are conditioned by a totally broken, racist culture. And it's coming to the full light of day, and it doesn't look good. And so people are anxious about what's going on. I am too. But what's really happening is now happening on TV. You know, that there's a correspondence in feeling across all of the United States that was not present last week even. And so I think there's an opportunity in that. And I'm not exactly sure where it goes, but we're together in our lament, at least. We're together in our frustration and our anger. Everyone feels like unsettled because, the state of the world is unsettling. Not just because people are rioting across the country, but because, like you said, the state-sanctioned violence, particularly against black people and other people of color, is exposed. And the homeostasis of the United States does not like it. The country is sick, and it feels like we're nauseous and we're throwing up.
I think that's a great way to put it. I think you have to see this reaction as an emotional response to oppression.
That homeostasis you're talking about, Ben, that's getting disrupted is not just being disrupted on the streets with the protests and rioting. I think that part of the unrest and the disruption that is being shared across the U.S. is that dramatic display of it in the death of George Floyd also disrupts the homeostasis within each of us. You can't really ignore the fact that when that kind of violence is played out over and over again across our country, it's not this other thing. It's at the heart of the whole American project. That also means that it is in my heart too. And so I think the disruption is not just about the unrest that our city is in right now, for example. It's an unrest within me personally.
Mm-hmm. I think it's calling us to lament. It's calling us to repent of our complicity in these systems of death. And we're feeling it. And I think we need to keep feeling it, even if the riots die down and if the media moves on. This is how it's been for a long time. And we want something different.
I have to say that I think that this disruption in the homeostasis is meaningful. And one of the reasons I think so is because, you start with police brutality. Everyone sees it. Everyone I've spoken to sees the video of George Floyd getting killed. And everyone's convicted. This is wrong. What we do after that is complicated, right? In protest, the peaceful protesters, the police responded with more brutality. This is what you do, it seems like. Show me another way. They're not doing that. Then the National Guard comes in and the president's talking about bringing in the military. This disruption is so meaningful that to restore the homeostasis, all of this effort is being put into it. It's kind of incredible, the insistence on keeping things the way they were, And I understand the instinct to do that because we want it to feel peaceful even when it's not. But I think we just have to keep naming it. Let's keep talking about it.
It's just, again, it's like the insides are now on the outsides. A lot of the times, the powers that be are able to control this through other means. Economic subjugation, messaging, there are so many other ways that racism has woven its roots into every system to keep people down. Keep black people down, keep brown people down. And that is violent all the time. That is huge all the time. But normally we don't have to look at it, especially white people like me. That's the definition of white privilege, is I don't have to look at that if I don't want to. And so now it's on the outside. Now we see that emperor is naked. Now we see how the domination system works. Now it looks ugly to everyone when they're tear gassing my teenage friends. Again, I think there's some moment of opportunity here because the truth is being seen by a lot more people. Someone was talking to you, Jonny, this week. They're kind of a representative of Fox Nation, and they were vibing with you a little bit in a way that they hadn't before, right?
Oh, yeah, my dad called me, and he decried George Floyd's death. And it was so apparent to him that it was wrong. He's back to texting me about the other annoying stuff now, for what it's worth. But there was
I was trying to give your
there.
dad some anonymity. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about him by name.
My dad does not listen to this podcast. And that's a different source of pain for me, that he would never listen to this podcast, but that's for another show. Yeah, I mean, I think the collective grief is happening. Some self-awareness for the nation and for the people would be really helpful right now, See the woundedness, see the body being hurt and reacting to this great injustice, and pray for a new way. Pray that healing comes. When we protest no justice, no peace, this is what we mean. Peace is not just keeping us quiet. It's not just keeping us down. We actually need to be healed. Fix this. Stop killing us. That's the reaction,
And we're compelled to be people of peace and justice because of our Lord Jesus Christ. We're not just cause heads trying to get down with what's the de jure way to talk about this. This is ancient in that it's the way that the powers that be work. It's the way that violence works. It's the way that humanity works. And because of that, it's also what Jesus stands against and what Jesus frees us from. There's an imagination that Jesus makes possible that is not being accessed. There's a capacity that the body of Christ has to respond to the world and to be an alternative to this go-around, this violence that keeps happening. And we need to be part of the prophetic voice that speaks out against that. And so this is not the Circle of Hope pastors are so woke. This is our discerned experience as people living in the 21st century, in the urban Northeast, Delaware watershed. Like, if we're going to love our neighbors, it looks something like this. There's no other way.
Jesus authors this movement that we're trying to get on. If we appear woke to you, it is only incidental. Jesus is still our leader. Does that make sense? We're still following Jesus. And so any incidental overlap is just that. I'm still taking my cues from my Lord. That's who's leading me.
Yeah, and before we get into that more, I just want to acknowledge the fact that I think people feel afraid. And, none of us want violence in our neighborhoods. I don't want the local pharmacy on the corner to be destroyed and the family that owns it to suffer more because of this. I don't want more looting and more violence, but we also don't want things to just get back to business as usual. I think we touched on that earlier, but I just want to say that before we get to
totally.
What is the alternative that Jesus is making of us right now in this moment is not just a desire to get back to normal and purported peace of day-to-day life. We actually want to respond to this moment.
Mm-hmm.
Something needs to change.
Mm-hmm. And I think what we see in Jesus is not the instinct to protect himself from the violence, but he gets right in there. I think that's where we are too, and he's with us in it.
What does it look like to be right in there in the violence now? I mean, one place where violence is happening is the police are dominating the streets of Philadelphia. Should we be there? Should we go towards that violence? Some of our friends are. There are people in Circle of Hope that have been right in the center of that.
Yeah, I think Jesus would be. I think Jesus is right where the pain is, right where the hurt is. And I think we're talking back. And I am glad we have a circle of peacemakers and circle mobilizing because Black Lives Matter helping us to engage in that. They're representing us too.
And I think something that Jesus brings is he entered death and took it on and came out on the other side. There's an ability to engage without fear. Not that he wasn't afraid and not that we're not afraid, but there is a peace that he's offering in the midst of this that I think it is in this world, but it's also beyond this world. He is bringing a kingdom here now among us that does have the capacity to love and build bridges. We don't always know what that looks like, but he is our leader in that, and we're trying to follow him.
Yeah, well, the peace of Christ is the fuel that you can do the kind of imagining of a future that doesn't look like anything you've ever known. There's a, homeostasis was the word I used earlier. That comes out of family systems, which the reason that we we want things to be status quo is because they're comfortable for us and because we were born into that. Literally, not like we got our minds, like we decided to be this way. It's like our idea, like in our lizard brain, in like the back of our brain, the most basic part of us, the fight or flight place where it's all instinctual before we even have a thought, requires white supremacy.
Yes.
And violence. We know this enough about how human babies become adults, you know? Very early in our lives, we became accustomed to something, and so our sense of safety requires a way of being that is evil. What do we do about this? We have to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. We need that peace of Christ to allow us to do anything different than our programming. And I hate talking about human beings like they're computers, and I just did it, and I'm sorry. But there's something that we need first before we can imagine anything different, before we can act any differently. That is the freedom that Christ offers us. That's the primary freedom. Be unchained from this perverse generation. It's perverse.
We were quoting that this Sunday. You can watch our Sunday meeting at circleofhope.net/online meeting if you missed it. But Pentecost was this last Sunday. We're quoting Acts 2, where Peter is addressing the gathered Jews who are speaking different languages, and now they're speaking a common language, and saying, no, repent, change your lives, be cut to the heart, move towards Jesus, do something new. That's the kind of spirit that we have. And I think just allow this moment to pierce you, to convict you, right?
I think what you guys are saying is be unchained from getting your sense of safety from the state at all, especially if you're a white person. That's the conditioning you've received. That might be part of the discomfort with all of this unrest now. It's because we have been trained to rely on the whatever safety the culture and the government provides. It's not from Jesus. Jesus is offering us something more and better, and we've got to dismantle that old system to rely fully on God.
And I think I'm harping on this point, but this moment allows us to see in full view, in the full light of day, that experience of white people, my experience as a white man, allows me to have that basic trust. And that is not the experience of people in this culture who are not white. It's just not.
And specifically in this instance, black people.
Yes.
You know, I'm saying that as a brown guy, too, because I know my experience as a brown guy is different. As an overseas immigrant is different than my black brothers and sisters. Rachel was talking about building bridges, and I like that image. I think that we have to encourage people to cross them. I think some of them are already built. Don't burn them down, you know. I think that the instinct is to try to stay where we are and keep things as they are. If we do that, if we're not moving toward God, moving in our discipleship even, I think that's the issue. You know, I think God has laid out the path for what it looks like. To divest of racism and violence, you know, these cornerstones of the United States. You know, the homeostasis is that we're addicted to those things as a society, you know, and you have to get in recovery. It's going to hurt. And it might feel good just to, you know, because you had a blow up here to get things back to where they were, but it's just going to happen again. The people are tired. We need a movement to do it. And we need Christians on board with this project. Sometimes Christians are on the other side for some reason. You know, I'm moved by God to change the world. I want people to get in on that project with us, right? I want real change, you know. So on one hand, I want the kingdom to come, and I want to move the world towards that. On the other hand, I know that isn't reducible to individuals changing their behavior alone. Like, I appreciate it when in Miami there's cops on their knees in solidarity with the protesters. But, you know, until we demilitarize you, until we get rid of qualified immunity, we might have this problem again. You know, this isn't just about individuals. You know, it's not just about good cops. It's not just about good white people. You know, we need a change, a bigger one, you know, and I think God can bring that. And I think we can help usher that in by, you know, following black leaders leading us to the reforms that we need in the country. You know, I know that might be too practical for this metaphysical moment, but I actually want those things to happen. I want to be served and protected, not afraid for my life. I think the church can be mobilized to do those things too, and I think Christians have been in history. You know, if you look at the civil rights movement, it was hardly a clean movement. It's the same kind of disruption happening, difficulty, complication. People are anxious, worried about what's going to happen, right? And Christians were a part of that. The church was a part of that. You know, so I think we have a role to play here too.
They were pivotal in that. I think you highlighted another core lie that needs to be addressed, Jonny, is that we do want to reduce this problem to individual behavior. And that's another Americanism that we've been born into that might transcend racial lines, is this sense of this refusal to recognize this as a systemic problem. I know that's an easy way out for a lot of people so that they can be kind, and that's the end. So recognizing that that the solution to America's problems is not a matter of individual transformation. The individual transformation is the fuel that activates the societal transformation. So it's a both and. But then, we have to keep doing something about it. And for white people, we have to keep doing the work, because I don't think there's some exorcism that we can get for our white supremacy. It's not a one and done kind of thing. We have to keep addressing it.
It's a legion of demons.
I love that the demon thing that, Jesus says the house gets the demons cast out of it, and they sweep the house clean. But then the demons go out into the desert and get a bunch more demons, and they come back and fill it worse than it ever was.
Yeah. Whiteness and white supremacy seems exactly like that.
Well, we have to fill up our house with something. That's what Jesus is saying. And we have to fill up our house with an anti-racist identity that is robust and consistent, and opportunities for racial reconciliation that are, those bridges that you were talking about, Jonny. We have to do the difficult work of crossing them all the time, and not just default to where we're going to get pushed by the natural way of the world. We will be divided, quote, naturally segregated all the time, and to do the work of being anything but what this system wants us to be requires a lot of patience, endurance, and tenacity. What you, Julia, said, lifelong work.
I love that image of filling up the house with something else. That something else is the life of Christ and the death of Christ that we carry around within us, so that the life of Christ can be revealed. And I think that truth is the heart of anti-racism work. Because I have to be willing to die to all of these lies, to all of this way that I have been so conditioned and socialized, in order to find my life somewhere else, to find my life filled up with Christ. And I need community to do that. This is not an individual work. This is a communal project. I need the church. I need you all, and we need each other in order to imagine an unimagined future together. That is the work of the Holy Spirit. It's not of our own power.
This is from Matthew 11. It's also in Luke, what I was referring to. Oh no, this is Matthew 12. When an impure spirit comes out of a person, it goes through arid places seeking rest and does not find it. Then it says, I will return to the house I left. When it arrives, it finds the house unoccupied, swept clean and put in order. That's going back to the way things were. Then it goes and takes with it 7 other spirits more wicked than itself, and they go in and live there. And the final condition of that person is worse than the first. That is how it will be with this wicked generation.
Wow. Ben,
Jesus Christ. That's what he's saying to us.
And I don't think that swept clean house is the way things were or business as usual. I think that is like our work to be self-righteous, our work to be clean, our work to be woke, our work to be perceived on the right side of things, whatever. All the things we do to clean ourselves out leave us with an empty house.
So we can even get it right. We're advocating for a kind of way to think about this thing. And even if you get that right, without Jesus living in your house, without that transformation at the center of you, way back in the back of your brain, the freedom that we're talking about, the peace of Christ that comes, without that, what does Paul say? Clanging cymbal. Without that love at the center of us.
I think that looks like a whole different thing. I think that looks like a new movement of Christians in the world. It's election day in Philadelphia and Pennsylvania today. So this is an unusual one, I have to say, but, I'm always thinking about that when I go to the ballot box, which I do twice a year, every year, what it looks like to slowly engage in this very gradual, maybe futile work of changing the immediate thing versus this bigger project that we're working on that is a true transformation, is a true revolution. I don't think it's just about right thinking, like Julie's saying, and it's not just about right legislation. It's not just about the right president, the right police chief. I think these systems are woven into us much deeper than that. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't change those things. It just means that that's not where our hope lies, ultimately.
If our righteousness is from Christ, and we are doing our best to act righteously in this provisional moment, like, could there ever be a law that was right? It's a law, for God's sake. It's made by a government that is upheld by violence, and there's no such thing as a nation state without an army. This is completely fraught. Of course it's provisional, so my participation in it is not existential. I must be coming from another place to participate effectively in this movement, particularly as a white man. And praise God that I am. Jesus is giving me at least the toehold to walk in that direction.
I love that you said toehold, Ben, because when you're rock climbing, sometimes all you need is one toehold to get to the next place. And so that gives me hope that one toehold in the righteousness of Christ, not our own, can help us continue to divest the privileges of whiteness and move into what's next together with him.
Thanks, Rachel. It's good to talk to you all about this. And we say dialogue keeps us connected. Let's keep talking. So if you want to talk back to us, Resist and Restore podcast at circleofhope.net is how you do it.
This last section is spiritual show and tell. We want to share what has been nourishing to our souls. Hopefully it'll be nourishing to you as well. It's been an intense week. What do you have for us? What's been nourishing your soul in the midst of so much unrest?
I'm reading Wilda Gafney's Womanist Midrash. Now, womanism is essentially black feminism. I'm reducing it a little bit, but it tries to offer a perspective from the position of a black woman. And so that nourishes me on its own because I like getting informed and led by people different than me. And in this book, she's going through the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, and she's trying to find stories that connect with black women specifically. She does a really amazing job with this, and a midrash is a commentary on the Old Testament, so she even writes some of her own midrash as well. I kind of nerded out in the middle of the week, which I kind of needed for my soul, to kind of do something that makes it feel a little bit normal, and in studying Hebrew and looking up Greek words in the Septuagint is kind of my normal in some way. So that was exciting to me, but a glimpse of the ordinary in an extraordinary time is really helpful, because there was so much going on this week that I just needed a little piece of that. And even though I was working with, social justice, race relations topic as I was reading the Bible, being in that space, it was actually comforting for me. So I appreciated the people that interacted with me online about this as well. I also did a Greek word study for a different parable or a story in the Bible, and that was helpful too. So that's what I do sometimes.
Puppies.
I decided on little dogs, but I guess follow me on Twitter if you want to see what I concluded about that.
That was the interaction with the Syrophoenician woman and what that word means. Yeah. Check it out. Check out Jonny. What's your handle on Twitter? Jonny Rashid, right?
Jonny Rashid.
Jonny, the book I'm reading right now has been nourishing my soul too. It's a novel, and I don't often read novels, but I ordered 3 of them at the beginning of quarantine, thinking I'd have more time to read, and the 3 that I ordered, the last 3 in the Hawk and the Dove series that I love, have still not arrived at my house. And it's like a running joke in my family that every time the doorbell rings, I get so excited that my books are here, and the package always ends up being for somebody else in my family. So I've given up on those books, but I picked up a different novel this week. It's The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, and it's a very moving account of slavery in the American South, obviously. But it's been illuminating to read it during this time in our history where it's so evident that we are still in the midst of this injustice. And so I've been grieving as I read it, and it's been stirring up my longing for healing and my prayer for change among us.
When I look down from lofty mountain grandeur and see the brook and feel the gentle breeze. There it is. That's my nourishment. I actually was going to say, nothing's nourishing my soul, guys. I'm wiped out. I'm feeling it. leading the church through this pandemic already, and then all of this eruption of what we were talking about earlier, and just the conflicted emotions. I was just feeling really drained and not actually taking a whole lot of time to take care of myself, just kind of running, thinking, just can't stop. And the thing that came to mind was a gentle breeze. I guess the only thing that nourished my soul this week was the breeze blowing the smell of honeysuckle in my windows. That's just about it. That's the only thing that comes to mind. And that corresponds to that song which we sang at the Sunday meeting, where I said earlier also I had a pretty great experience. That was kind of a breaking point on Sunday. It was really good to worship with y'all and feel the gentle breeze of the Spirit that might have been also in that gentle breeze of honeysuckle scent. Might be the same breeze, but I'm breathing it in.
Nice. Well, a couple weeks ago, we had asked on this podcast what was helping you focus and tune in to God, connect with Jesus. I forget exactly how we worded it, but this week we heard from a friend from across the country who responded to us and said that this show was helping her connect with Jesus. And that nourished my soul. Just to know that us having this dialogue and doing it publicly in this way is actually helping people. She said she listens to it when she's doing chores and she needs to focus, and she's found inspiration. She said that we make her laugh and reflect, which is so great. So I'm nourished that what we're doing here can help other people follow Jesus nearby and across the country, remotely, as she said. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this dialogue from wherever you are. Until next time.